Cold calls. Don't we love them when they go after 10 seconds this way? Hi, my name's Eddie Luis. I work for Big Profit for You company. I'd love to talk to you about, hey, no, I'm not interested. Or no, I got someone for that. Or plain old, click in your face. Isn't that so annoying? Well, let me explain to you how it works, because I think I have a thing or two to help you out, get those cold calls to become very, very successful. You have to understand that your prospect, you, me, everyone that is a human being at the moment, excluding maybe Sheldon Cooper, we operate on a brain that has two systems. The front of the brain, the cortex, frontal cortex, which is there to spend a lot of energy to solve complex problems, that is there to put as much effort into trying to get you out of any troubles you put yourself or any of the big challenges you've picked up. And the back, and I'm simplifying here, which is your limbic system, which very much works like the energy saving mode on your phone or your car. It's there to just basically recognize patterns as much as possible, give a pre-made response, and save as much energy as possible. Now, the research at the moment is more or less on a 70-30% basis, where 70% of your day is spent using energy saving mode, and only 30% of your time is effectively being used towards solving complex problems from a brain's perspective. What does that mean from a cold call angle? Well, guess what? When you're reaching out to that prospect, you're not the only guy trying to reach out to him. Everybody under the sun is trying to sell them something. Could be Sharpies, could be the new hot AI tool, could be stocks, could be insurance, could be tech, could be anything. Consumers, B2B, etc. It doesn't matter. And every single one, or the majority of salespeople, sound exactly the same. So what does that mean? Tying up back to my brain story, it means that the back of the brain of your prospect is now noticing a pattern. He's like, oh, it's a sales pitch. This is going to be a waste of time because he's not prepared. He's a terrible human being. La 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 la. Here's the automated response. Not interested. Got someone for that. Call me back later. Hang up in your face. It is basically a tit for tat or a reaction game. That's what cold calling is. So if you're doing what everybody else is doing, well, technically it is very much the definition of insanity. A little bit of a Vas Montenegro Far Cry 3 reference here for the gamers out there watching. So that means that ultimately breaking the pattern is what you're after. Because if not, you're not really talking to your prospect. You're talking to his answering machine of his brain. That's the best way I describe it to other salespeople. It is an answering machine. You're not really explaining what you're doing to the important part of his brain. So you have to break the patterns. Now, what does that mean? It means that ultimately you're the first one to speak. And the things that come out of your mouth in those first 10 seconds have to not be exactly what everybody else says. Now, I don't have exactly some magical words to sell you or to make you use right away, because what happens is that the more something successful is being used, then the more used it and generic and generally used it is, and the less effective it becomes, and then it becomes a pattern in the back of the brain of your prospects. I'll give you a very good example. This sounds fair enough from The Wolf of Wall Street when DiCaprio is closing that guy on the phone. It became used by everyone in 2014. It became so overused that it became immediately a guy of like, oh, you're trying to Wall Street me. I'm like, okay. Now, 10 years later, it kind of became out of a bit of fashion, so maybe you guys can use it. But ultimately, if I go on YouTube today and I look at how to become better at cold calling, all the people will tell me, don't be enthusiastic, don't be this, don't be that, don't be... that's like blanket statements don't really work for you and I. If you're someone that's funny, right? I mean genuinely funny. Use humor in the first 10 seconds to disarm what the prospect's response will be, because he's not used to it. If you're someone that is very analytical, that has a lot of data, or you can ask a rhetorical question about what you've noticed. Because if you just say, hi, I'm this, how are you today? Well, I don't know you. Nobody in my everyday life, no stranger comes to me and asks me how I am, because they usually want something, and I just want to know, what the hell do you want? So that is a pattern that you know you're going to railroad yourself back into failure. So don't ask questions like this. You have to focus on the outcome you want, which in a cold call, and I'm going to go on a limb here, is either you want to sell directly on the phone with them, or you're trying to get a meeting with them. That is ultimately what you want. Now, you need to basically drive your 10, 30, 45 minute long call towards what you want. Always remember what the end game is. And in order for this to happen and to break that pattern that we just explained, you need to trigger emotions. Now, a lot of tips or tutorials out there will say try and trigger fear, try and trigger like curiosity, try and trigger excitement, etc. There is no one-size-fits-all exercise. All right, there is no way of knowing what will work on that individual unless you have like a really well-established psychographic profile of your prospects on your CRM. But triggering emotion is ultimately what will give you the front of the brain response. Okay, I need to focus on this. I need to actually put in my energy into this and not just give him the answering machine response. So let's say you want to trigger fear. Fear is arguably the most effective, simply, and this has nothing to do with sales, it has to do with our human nature. We're more afraid of loss than we're afraid of gain. We're more afraid of pain than we're attracted to pleasure. That's how we are hardwired. It's so painfully predictable. So fear is an interesting one. So by doing the problematic, or putting the problematic forward, not the solution, the problematic of why you're reaching out to them, you could technically trigger an emotional response from them. All right? What do I mean by this? Let me give you a live example. I noticed in my current in my current situation that the developers in my market are developing properties in the $1 million market segment and above. And they're developing that market at about 20% progression at the moment. And the reality is that income growth, so meaning people that can actually afford either buying cash a $1 million property, would it not be nice, or mortgaging it, there's only a population growth for about 3 to 4%. So the growth is outperforming by 5 times, literally. So when I reach out to one of those developers, I say, hi, I'm this person. I'm reaching out because I'd like to know who I should talk to about this situation in the market where you are developing properties in that segment and there's only X amount of people there's only a population growth of X% in that segment. Who can I talk to about this? Immediately the response is like, what? Like it's a mix of curiosity and fear. Like, what do you mean the market's not growing as fast? And I'm like, well, based on the statistics from the government here, we've noticed that this is what's going on. This is what your competitors are launching. I'd like to have a meeting with you because I think I have something that could maybe help you plug this gap. If that's fair enough, I'd like to have a meeting with you at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. Now, hot tip for you, they'll probably say no the first time. You ask another date the second time. By the third time, the likelihood of them actually giving you that meeting is 83% higher than if you had tried once, because people don't like saying no too many times. So that's a real use tips for you right there. But what you ultimately want in your first 10 seconds is have something that makes the person go, So I've had some individuals say, hey, this is a sales call. You can hang up in my face, but I genuinely have a good reason why I'm reaching out to you. That's a pattern breaking example. Another one would be the joke side. The other one would be the problematic. That's ultimately what most people don't use. Another thing as well is, and what I'm sometimes victim of on those videos as well, is speak like a human being. What I mean by this, guys and girls, is I notice that salespeople are two different people when they're on the phone and when they're in real life. There is this like high-pitched, almost stressed voice on the phone, and then there's this cool as a cucumber guy in real life. Be that person on the phone. I want, as a prospect, to talk to an actual human being, not a stressed person. Because the response is like, I don't want that. I don't want anything that. Again, patterns recognition. So slow down in your first 10 seconds. Use something to trigger emotions. Put the problematic forward of why you're calling them and let them try and figure it out, because they're going to have to give you a response based on that. And ultimately, it is a game of numbers. What you want is to turn a definitive no in the first 10 seconds into a maybe that can be turned into a yes in the following 10 seconds, and on and on and on, because you have about 1 minute to 2 minutes maximum on the phone. That's ultimately what the name of the game is here. And if you focus always on what you want, on the outcome, and try and not engage that energy saving mode of your prospects, then you're naturally going to start seeing a progression in what happens. So if you are disarming, if you're being reasonable and you're using emotion, and what do I mean by reasonable? If you're just putting forward a problematic that is backed by data or that has something that will make them answer, and you're just saying, I'd like to maybe talk about how, you know, we could plug this, maybe, things like that, that is reasonable. Okay? That is ultimately what cold call is about. You also, from your own psychological point of view, if you approach a cold like this, you know that the outcome will be different and you'll be more confident. Because if you just say, hi, my name's Eddie Luis, I work for XYZ firm, and I'd like to, you back of your brain, you're thinking, oh God, I've had 15 no's in a row on this one. Well, if you're using a different pattern breaking cold calling techniques, then your brain goes, I don't know what's going to happen on this one. And suddenly even your tone of voice is going to change. Even your dynamics on the call is going to be changing. And remember, if you do this, the outcome will be different, because ultimately what you're currently doing is getting you just no's. Try this. For the guys that are using pattern breaking cold calling techniques, do share them downstairs in the comments, because that's fun. Please subscribe. I'm going to do a lot more videos on this subject, because cold calling is arguably the most searched subject on sales, and it is the one which is arguably the most rewarding when done properly. See you around. Peace.